The jungle screamed. Not with sound, but with silence. Birds vanished. The wind choked. And above the ancient canopy, a tear ripped open in the sky, glowing violet like a god's angry eye. Through it came fire, metal, and death, an alien warship spiraling out of control, vomiting smoke as it plummeted through the clouds. It crashed into Earth like a divine mistake, incinerating trees, flipping boulders, and waking something that should have been left asleep. Somewhere in the green depths, a barefoot man opened one eye and whispered to the trees, "Not again." The warship groaned as it settled into a crater the size of a football field. Sparks flew from every corner. Inside, chaos unfolded in 3 languages, none of them human. Rexnor, 7 feet of muscle and fury with a robotic eye that scanned for threats even when he blinked, kicked open the emergency hatch. Clictic, the insected tracker, coughed up a chunk of moss and spat in annoyance. Atmosphere breathable. Gravity insultingly heavy. And we landed on something squishy. The squishy thing groaned. It was Bleep, the team's adorable tech genius, now stuck in the mud, half his gear upside down, and translating bird calls as hostile negotiations. Vega dropped from the ship's edge like a ghost, tall, sleek, unreadable behind her face mask. She scanned the perimeter, her stealth systems flickering, adjusting to the local temperature. Target's escape vector points due north. We have 10 hours before his trail fades. But Rexnor wasn't listening. His cybernetic eye was fixed on a large leaf in his hand, freshly torn and still wet. "These aren't just trees," he muttered. "This place, it watches." Clictic laughed, all mandibles and smugness. "Please! This planet is marked level 2 threat. Slightly above a petting zoo." And then something laughed back. It came from the trees. A low, guttural chuckle that didn't echo. It vibrated in their chests, instead. Rexnor dropped the leaf. Clictic reached for his plasma bolt. Bleep clutched Vega's leg and whispered, "Did the tree just laugh at us?" 2 miles away, Kale moved like a shadow through the canopy. His skin painted in mud, vines wrapped around his arms like snakes, his eyes sharp with purpose. He was barefoot, not because he had no shoes, but because the jungle demanded respect. He knew every branch, every sound, every creature by name. And now, strangers had fallen into his home. He'd hoped Earth would be ignored. But of course, someone had to come hunting. They always did. In the remains of the ship, Rexnor summoned the team to regroup. "We have a fugitive with a cloaking rig and a stolen weapon capable of disintegrating planetary matter. Find him. Neutralize him. We leave before the locals start asking questions." Bleep raised a trembling hand. "Question, Commander. If the locals are intelligent enough to ask questions, shouldn't we not disintegrate parts of their forest?" Clictic rolled his eyes. "We're here to catch a shape-shifting mass murderer, not host a tea party." But they weren't alone. That night, as Vega stood watch, a strange figure perched above her in the darkness. Kale. He crouched on a branch, motionless, watching her movements with hawk-like precision. She was the only one who moved like she belonged to silence. A part of him respected that. Still, she was an invader. And that meant she had to go. Below, Clictic wandered off to scout the northern perimeter. "This jungle is weak. Overgrown salad. The animals barely bite," he mumbled. Seconds later, something dropped on him. A sack? No, a beehive. Screams echoed through the trees as the insectoid was chased by his Earth cousins, a poetic punishment that Kale watched from afar with a satisfied smirk. Rexnor, meanwhile, was placing sensors and motion trackers around the ship perimeter. One of them blinked rapidly. He turned his head slowly, blaster raised. There was nothing there. Then the blaster vanished from his hand. He spun, swinging his fist, and hit air. From the darkness came a voice, rough and calm. "You shouldn't be here." Rexnor turned again, only to find his blaster now lying at his feet, smoking. Back at the ship, Bleep tried repairing a broken satellite relay while singing alien nursery rhymes. A monkey appeared beside him, watching intently. Bleep blinked. Are you intelligent? He asked the monkey. The monkey responded by flipping the relay switch correctly. That's statistically improbable, Bleep whispered, making a mental note to reassess Earth's intelligence tier. By sunrise, the jungle had changed them. Click-Tick was covered in bug bites and ego wounds. Rex Snore was sharpening his blade more than usual. Vega stood unusually still, staring into the forest like it might stare back. And Bleep? He was learning monkey language. Then they found the message. Carved into a tree, in perfect galactic common. Leave now or be hunted. Silence fell over the group. Click-Tick scoffed, trying to laugh, but it cracked halfway out. Vega scanned it 3 times. No human should know this language. Rex Snore turned to the forest. He's watching us. And indeed Kale was. From above, behind, below. The jungle bent to his will. This wasn't just his home, it was his body, his blood, his memory. And now it was threatened by creatures who thought they could own it. He climbed higher, to a tree that had stood for centuries. He touched its bark and whispered, They're just like the last ones, huh? A breeze responded, rustling the leaves like an old sigh. This time, he wouldn't just scare them. This time, he'd teach them what it means to be hunted. Far beyond, deeper in the shadows, another figure watched. Not Kale. Not alien. The fugitive. And he smiled, for chaos had come from the stars. But Earth? Earth had its own monsters. The countdown had already begun. The jungle was breathing harder now. It pulsed beneath the canopy like a living beast, every leaf trembling with a tension that wasn't natural. Something had shifted overnight. The balance that Kale had maintained for years was beginning to tilt. He walked barefoot through the wet grass, each step silent, deliberate, as if even the soil needed reassurance. He could feel the tremor in the roots, the alertness of the animals. The forest was nervous, and it took a lot to make the forest nervous. Kale moved like water, weaving through vines and thick undergrowth, the sun barely slipping through the green ceiling above. He passed markings he had carved into tree trunks years ago, warning signs, memories, reminders. This was his domain, his sanctuary, a living memory of survival. And now, it was under threat. Again. The last time outsiders had come, they brought fire. Guns. Helicopters. They took animals, cleared land, called it progress. Kale was a boy then, half wild, more scared than strong. But he'd learned. The jungle taught him what no human school ever could. And now, new intruders had fallen from the sky, louder and cockier than the last. Not even from Earth. He wasn't sure what they wanted, but their gear, their posture, the way they held their weapons, it all smelled like predators. He reached the river and crouched beside it. A red parrot landed on his shoulder, then another on his knee. Kale touched the water and stared into the reflection, seeing more than just his own face. He saw the jungle's fear. The birds chirped once. A signal. Kale nodded. It was time to confront the threat properly. Back at the crash site, Rex Snore was analyzing motion sensor data while Click-Tick pouted in a hammock he constructed entirely out of plasma wiring. His skin was covered in welts from yesterday's bee incident, and every time he tried to speak, a butterfly landed on his antennae, throwing off his balance. Vega was nowhere to be seen, which worried Rex Snore more than he'd admit. Bleep, on the other hand, was in paradise. He had befriended 3 monkeys and taught them how to perform basic mechanical tasks. One of them even learned how to reboot the ship's core processor with a slap and a banana. Rex Snore squinted at a blinking red dot on his tracker. North quadrant. Movement. Speed suggests bipedal. Heavy but stealthy. Click-Tick groaned from the hammock, waving a vine away. Probably a jaguar. This planet's crawling with them. Bite like my ex. Rex Snore ignored him. No jaguar moves like this. It's deliberate. Calculated. He's testing our perimeter. Click-Tick sat up, narrowing his multifaceted eyes. He? Bleep was the first to answer, his translation device catching a hidden audio pattern in the forest. He's watching. And he's not afraid of us. Vega finally reappeared, stepping out of the shadows without a sound. "Correction," she said. "He's studying us. I saw footprints this morning. Human. Barefoot. But there's no sign of heat. No tech signature. He blends in completely." Clictic scoffed. "A local savage? Seriously? What's he going to do, throw a coconut at us?" Just as he finished the sentence, a coconut smacked him directly on the forehead. Everyone turned in stunned silence. Bleep blinked twice. Vega didn't even hide her smirk. Rexnor reached for his weapon but paused. That throw was too precise, too well timed. This wasn't coincidence. This was communication. Kale had watched them long enough. He knew their patterns, their weaknesses, how they moved when they thought no one was watching. They were clearly hunting something, but they weren't just tourists or scientists. Their weapons hummed with energy that didn't belong on Earth. They were soldiers, or worse, mercenaries. He didn't trust them, not with his jungle. Not with his animals. And especially not with the fragile balance of this place. Later that afternoon, Kale decided to make contact. Sort of. He set up a trap near the river, baiting it with a rare orchid only found in the northern stretch of jungle. Vega, curious and cautious, noticed the bloom and approached. The moment she touched it, the vines around her snapped tight, lifting her off the ground and suspending her upside down from a tree. She remained calm, analyzing the trap. No metal. No rope. Purely organic design. Clever. Too clever for any standard jungle dweller. Kale emerged from the foliage, face streaked in ash, eyes unreadable. He stood in front of her, silent. Vega studied him. Not a word passed between them for a moment, that stretched too long. Then Kale cut the vines with a flick of his wrist, and she dropped, not roughly, but intentionally. He leaned in slightly, voice low, strong, and clear. "Leave. This jungle doesn't want you." Before she could respond, he was gone, swallowed by the trees. Vega returned to camp, more rattled than she let on. Rexnor listened carefully, then nodded. "So it's true. There is someone here. A wild human, somehow alive, and he thinks this place belongs to him." Bleep added. "Technically it does. He's integrated with the biosphere. His presence stabilizes the local ecosystem." Clictic was less impressed. "We're talking about a barefoot man who ties knots in vines. I'm not scared of vines." That night, Rexnor set a trap of his own. Advanced sensors, motion cameras, proximity alarms, everything their tech could offer. They all went to sleep, confident their perimeter was airtight. By morning, every sensor was twisted into a smiley face. Their weapons were rearranged into a peace sign. Clictic's hammock was now suspended from 20 feet in the air, with Clictic still inside, screaming and spinning like a wind chime. Bleep clapped. "He has a sense of humor." Rexnor didn't laugh. "This isn't just a jungle. This is his war zone." Kale, watching from a hidden ledge above them, sighed. He didn't enjoy toying with them, not really. But they had to understand. This wasn't their ground to conquer. He'd seen what happened when outsiders came in with guns and ambition. This time, he'd make sure they left before anything burned. He ran his fingers through Duchess's fur, the black panther beside him purring deeply. She understood. They all did. But as Kale prepared to disappear again, he saw something new. Movement beyond the aliens' camp. Quiet. Too quiet. It wasn't one of the four. It wasn't a monkey. It wasn't anything Kale recognized. He froze. So did Duchess. Something else was in the jungle. And it didn't belong to the forest. Not even a little. The jungle had moods, and today it wore a warning. The air was tighter, the shadows longer. The creatures that usually stirred at dawn stayed hidden. Kale felt it in his bones, something darker than alien mercenaries had awakened beneath the canopy. The quiet wasn't respectful anymore. It was afraid. He stood near the base of a massive kapok tree, fingers brushing the bark like he was asking permission to pass. Duchess growled low beside him, tail twitching. Her senses, far more refined than his, were already on alert. They were being followed, but not by the four who crashed from the sky. This presence was wrong. Too quiet, too smooth, like it had never belonged to a living world at all. In the distance, a strange shimmer moved through the undergrowth. Not leaves. Not heat. A ripple in space itself. Cale crouched low and observed. Then it vanished. Whatever it wasn't just observing, it was stalking. Not him, not the panther. It was following the others. Rex Snor and his team had no idea. Cale debated whether to intervene or let them face the consequences of trespass. He wasn't their ally. He didn't trust them. But he also didn't want this thing poisoning his jungle. Rex Snor was at the north perimeter when his tracker buzzed once, then died. He tapped it, frowned, and pulled up his backup scan. Static. Galactic stumbled into camp moments later, grumbling and dragging his left leg. A thick vine was wrapped around his thigh. Ambushed by a plant. Again. I swear this jungle is sentient. Bleep, standing nearby with 3 monkeys and a makeshift data array made from banana leaves and wires, simply replied, Technically, you're not wrong. Vega was the only one who felt it. Not heard it. Not saw it. Just felt it. A whisper in the back of her mind, a flicker of instinct she had learned to never ignore. She walked calmly to Rex Snor, leaned in close, and said 2 words. We're not alone. Rex Snor stiffened. He trusted her instincts more than his own. Not the jungle man? Vega shook her head. Something else. Cold. Precise. Before he could respond, the air shimmered 10 feet away. Galactic turned just in time to see a shape flicker into visibility, a tall, metallic form with no face, just a mirrored shell that seemed to pulse with shifting patterns. Then it was gone again. Weapons drawn. Camp on full lockdown. Galactic was muttering curses in 3 dialects. Bleep, trying to analyze the brief visual imprint, gasped. That was the fugitive. Cloaking tech with refractive displacement. That's why our sensors can't track him. Rex Snor growled. He's here. Hunting us. Cale, from above, narrowed his eyes. So the fugitive was close. Very close. And worse, he was adapting. Cale had seen this behavior in predators before, not attacking immediately, but watching, studying, waiting to strike when the prey tired or grew careless. This one was clever. Too clever to let loose. That night, the jungle played orchestra to the chaos of high-stakes paranoia. Vega set up proximity mines near the river. Galactic reprogrammed his stingers to detect heat distortion. Bleep built a motion-sensitive barrier out of old tech and coconut husks. And Rex Snor didn't sleep. He sat sharpening his plasma blade, eye scanning every inch of the camp, daring anything to make a move. It did. Just after midnight, one of the mines vanished without detonation. Vega saw the alert. She activated her helmet cam and moved out, silently. Cale followed from above, curious to see what the fugitive would do. What he didn't expect was how close the encounter would be. Vega spotted a distortion ripple, aimed her blaster, and fired. The jungle exploded. But not with sound, with light. A blinding flash sent birds flying and monkeys shrieking. Cale leapt backward to avoid the energy wave. When the light cleared, Vega was on the ground, weapon smoking, and standing above her was herself. The fugitive had copied her appearance. Cale watched the imposter extend a hand toward her. Not in peace. The fingers shifted into razor-sharp blades. Vega rolled away just in time, but not before a deep gash opened across her side. She fired again. The blast scorched the creature's face, disrupting the disguise. The mirrored form shimmered and cracked. The copy collapsed into its true form, a sleek, silvery being with too many joints and eyes that blinked in random intervals. Cale dropped in like a hammer. No warning. No words. Just force. He slammed into the creature, tackled it into the brush, and used a vine-wrapped dagger to slash across its neck. The blade hissed, cutting through the cloaking tech, but not deep enough to kill. The fugitive screeched and vanished into the jungle with a burst of distortion. Vega sat up, breath ragged. You followed me, she said to Kale, not ungrateful, just surprised. Kale didn't answer. He was already scanning the trees. He won't stop. He's feeding off your tech. Every scan, every energy burst makes him smarter. Rex, Snore, and the others arrived moments later, weapons raised but frozen at the sight of Kale standing protectively near Vega. Rex Snore lowered his blade. You saved her. Kale didn't acknowledge him. He's not just hiding. He's waiting. When he's done copying you, he'll go for the rest. Clictic rubbed his mandibles nervously. What happens when he copies all of us? Bleep spoke quietly. Then he won't need to hide. He'll use your identities to access the ship. To escape. Kale stepped forward. I know this jungle. I can trap him. But you'll have to follow my rules. Rex Snore raised an eyebrow. Your jungle, your rules? Kale nodded. No scanners. No drones. No energy weapons. You use the jungle, or it uses you. Vega, still clutching her side, looked to Rex Snore. We don't have a choice. By morning, Kale was leading the alien hunters deeper into the densest part of the jungle. A place even the animals avoided. Twisted trees. Ground soft as a heartbeat. Fog that smelled of wet stone and memory. He showed them how to move without noise. How to blend. How to feel instead of scan. Clictic stepped in something he shouldn't have and screamed as leeches the size of thumbs latched onto his leg. Bleep tried to help but got attacked by a swarm of moths. Kale sighed and shook his head. You don't listen to the jungle. It screams at you. But something else was listening. The fugitive had followed them. Watching. Learning. Planning. Kale stopped by a hollow tree and pressed his hand against it. This is where we take the fight to him. Rex Snore stared into the darkness ahead. You sure about this? Kale didn't blink. This is my home. I'm always sure here. And from within the shadows, a familiar voice echoed back. But it wasn't Kale's. It was Rexner's. Perfect. Identical. Terrifying. The voice echoed through the trees like a curse. Rexner's voice, pitch perfect, filled the misty hollows of the jungle, but Rex Snore hadn't spoken. He stood frozen, blade in hand, his real voice caught in his throat. Kale stepped ahead, barely flinching. He knew mimicry, had seen how the jungle itself echoed back cries of warning or confusion. But this wasn't the forest playing tricks. This was the fugitive taking the game to a new level. It had learned not just to observe, but to deceive. The copy of Rex Snore stepped out from the shadows ahead. It was flawless, posture, expression, even the cybernetic eye with its slight twitch. The only thing off was the silence. The real Rex Snore was never that quiet. For a moment, no one moved. The air held its breath. Then Kale did something no one expected. He lowered his weapon. Slowly, he walked toward the copy, unarmed, calm. The others tensed, unsure if this was bravery or madness. Kale stared into the impostor's eye. The creature stared back, scanning him, waiting. Kale spoke softly. You're just bones and mirrors. But you want to be something real, don't you? The copy blinked, confused for the first time. Kale struck without warning. A palm to the throat, a sweep of the leg, and the creature went down hard. The illusion flickered, revealing the fugitive's true form again, shifting metal, smooth and cold, now tangled in roots that Kale had subtly guided beneath its feet. But it didn't stay down. With a shriek that made birds scatter across miles, it launched upward, knocking Kale back and vanishing once more into the mist. Rex Snore pulled Kale to his feet. That thing's done playing. Kale wiped blood from his mouth. Good. Neither am I. The team moved now as one, deeper into the jungle. Kale led, Vega close behind, her injury bound with vines soaked in sap that numbed the pain. Bleep kept pace, occasionally stopping to reroute trackers using nothing but clay and monkey-carved symbols. Clictic complained every few steps, but his eyes never stopped scanning. The jungle was no longer just scenery. It was now an ally, weaponized under Kale's direction. They reached a clearing by dusk. A circle of standing stones, moss-covered and ancient, formed a natural arena. Kale had chosen this spot intentionally. The stones disrupted signal interference. The air inside the circle distorted technology. Here, the fugitive couldn't vanish behind invisibility. Here, it would have to fight. Kale instructed them all where to stand. Bleep was to rig a sonic trap using the resonance between the stones. Vega, from above, would watch for movement. Clictic would guard the north flank with manual traps, spikes, nets, and his increasingly creative bug-based distractions. Rex Snore would take center, bait by choice. Kale, as always, would be in the trees unseen. As night fell, silence crept in like smoke. The jungle held its breath again. Then came the hum. Soft at first. Like wind against metal. Then stronger, sharper, louder. It was the fugitive, stepping into the trap without hesitation, without fear. The team watched as it appeared fully visible in the center of the stone ring. No disguise this time. Its body shimmered like liquid chrome, arms folding into blades, eyes glowing a dim blue that flickered with calculation. It didn't speak. It didn't need to. The battle erupted in a flash. Rex Snore charged first, blade meeting blade, sparks flying. The ground shook with the impact. Vega fired dart after dart from above, trying to weaken the creature's defenses. Clictic launched a net, only for it to be sliced apart midair. The fugitive moved like liquid death, adapting instantly to every tactic. It struck Rex Snore hard, sending him flying into one of the stone pillars. Bleep triggered the sonic trap. A high-frequency tone exploded across the circle, disorienting everyone, except Kale. From above, he dropped like a thunderclap, his hands wrapped in stone-knuckled gloves. He struck the creature's back, cracking through the outer shell. The creature spun, roaring, and lunged, but Kale used its momentum to flip it over and slam it against the base of the tallest stone. The creature responded with a counter-strike that would have torn through armor. Kale barely ducked it. His left shoulder still caught the edge, the pain white-hot. He gritted his teeth and rolled away. Vega jumped down to shield him, and Rex Snore rejoined the fight with a shout, his blade now glowing with unstable plasma. They attacked together, man, woman, alien, jungle. The creature stumbled. Bleep screamed through the calm. Now! It's destabilizing! Kale looked at the roots beneath the fugitive's feet. He'd woven them with a rare explosive flower whose nectar reacts to heat. One well-placed shot would ignite them all. He gave Vega a nod. She fired. The explosion wasn't massive. It was sharp and bright, like lightning in a bottle. The fugitive screamed, its cloaking systems frying, armor peeling away. The light died. The jungle went silent again. Smoke cleared. The creature lay still. Its chest heaved once. Then stopped. Rex Snore walked over, scanning. Dead. Kale approached last, looking down not with triumph, but with a quiet understanding. He was just trying to escape, he murmured. But he brought war into balance. Balance fights back. Everyone stood in the circle, wounded, filthy, alive. The jungle relaxed, branches rustling softly, like an old friend exhaling. But just as they turned to leave, Bleep's device chirped. He looked at the screen, then at the others. The beacon, it sent a partial signal before the blast. Not a full distress call. But enough. Rexner's jaw tightened. Someone heard it. Kale nodded. Then someone's coming. Clictic groaned. More guests? Wonderful. They made their way back through the jungle. Along the way, monkeys followed. Birds flew beside them. Even the wind felt gently now. At the crash site, Kale helped them repair what was left of the ship, his knowledge of local minerals guiding Bleep to just the right spot for fuel calibration. Vega sat with him for a moment, watching the sunrise through the branches. You could leave with us, she said. There's a war out there. Your skills. Kale shook his head. I already fight a war here. Against those who forget the earth beneath them. Rex Snore approached. You saved us. We don't forget that. Cale didn't answer. He just turned and walked back into the trees. Duchess followed. The ship lifted off hours later, silent and sleek, vanishing into the clouds. Cale stood on a high ledge, watching it go, the jungle breathing steady beneath him. But far away, in deep space, another ship turned its path toward Earth. Larger. Colder. Curious. And in the jungle, Cale opened his eyes again. He smiled. The game wasn't over yet. Rain whispered across the jungle canopy like a lullaby from the clouds, gentle at first, then slowly building, washing away the blood, soot, and scars left behind from the fight. The earth drank it in, grateful. Cale stood barefoot on a mossy ridge overlooking the clearing where the alien ship had once crashed. Now, only a faint scorched imprint remained, overgrown already by curious vines and stubborn grass. Nature wasted no time in reclaiming what was hers. That was her way. Endurance over victory. Silence after storms. The team was gone now, taken to the stars in their half-repaired ship, trailing smoke and stories. Cale watched the sky for hours after they vanished, not because he missed them, but because he knew something had changed. The jungle could feel it too. The birds had returned to their trees, but they sang more cautiously. The monkeys swung through the branches again, but they cast wary glances at the shadows. Even Duchess moved differently, tail low, ears twitching at invisible things. Something was on its way. Something worse than the fugitive. Cale sat beside the old stone circle where the final battle had been fought. A single flower bloomed through a crack in the ground where the fugitive had fallen. He plucked it gently, turning it in his fingers. It was a healing flower, rare, growing only after ground was torn and disturbed. It had come quickly this time. Maybe the jungle was warning him, or maybe it was preparing him. Either way, Cale had no illusions. The partial signal had been enough. Another storm was coming. Far above Earth, among cold stars and darker intentions, a ship not built for exploration but domination altered its course. It was larger than Rexner's team could have imagined, its engines old and cruel. Inside, a council of beings watched the Earth through holographic scans, noting the failed mission, the fugitive's death, and the unfamiliar interference of an unregistered entity. A human, cloaked in mud and mystery, had not only resisted their weapon but aided in its defeat. That was not acceptable. The leader, a tall, gaunt figure with silver veins running down his temple, said only 4 words: "Prepare for surface breach." Back on Earth, Cale knelt near the waterfall, repairing a collapsed rock bridge used by a family of tapirs. His movements were slow, deliberate. Helping the land heal helped him think. He had not known the fugitive's full purpose until the very end. But now, with the jungle quieter and his mind clearer, he could sense it. That creature had not just been hiding, it had been scouting. Testing Earth's defenses. Gauging how easy it might be to invade, conquer, replace. He dipped his hands in the water and saw his reflection. He looked older somehow. Not in years, but in weight. He had always been a guardian, ever since the jungle spared his life, but now he was more than that. He was a line in the sand. A living warning? And he knew the next wave wouldn't be curious or cautious. It would be merciless. That night, as thunder cracked in the distance and fireflies lit the dark, Cale climbed to the highest tree in the forest. From there, he could see the ocean glimmering on the horizon and the deep black sky above. He closed his eyes and listened. Not to the sounds of animals or wind, but to the rhythm of the earth itself. It was disturbed, restless. A vibration beneath the soil, distant but growing. They were coming. They wouldn't announce themselves with a crash or a signal. They would arrive like a scalpel, silent, sharp, and ready to cut. Cale returned to his hidden grove, the place where he kept the old gear, scraps of tech from other visitors who hadn't respected the land. He sorted through pieces, his fingers dancing over cracked circuits and melted cores. From Rexner's group, Bleep had left him something quietly in the night before they departed. A beacon shield, miniature, adaptive, disguised as a stone. It pulsed faintly in Cale's palm now, a silent guardian of its own. He planted it in the roots of the oldest tree, whispering thanks. But he knew shielding wouldn't be enough. Not this time. Over the next days, Kale prepared. He walked the length of the jungle, revisiting the deepest places where even predators feared to go. He spoke to the creatures in ways only he understood. He marked trails, reawakened traps that hadn't been used in years, fortified the river crossings, and taught the younger monkeys how to sabotage mechanical limbs with sticks and squeals. The jungle responded eager, alert. Not just for survival now, but for war. The first sign came 3 nights later. A single black streak across the stars, so fast it looked like a shooting star if you didn't know better. Kale did. He watched it until it vanished behind the horizon, then waited. When the tremors began an hour later, he didn't flinch. They landed not with fire but with silence, as if they wanted to arrive unnoticed. 5 small ships, sleek and clawed, unfolded themselves like insects, and burrowed halfway into the earth to avoid being seen. They failed. The jungle had seen. Kale had seen. He waited until they deployed their scouts, tall, lean, faceless things with blades instead of arms and scanners instead of eyes. Then he acted. One by one, the scouts fell. Not from blaster fire or brute force, but from the forest itself. Quicksand cleverly baited with shiny metal trinkets. Branches that snapped with unnatural precision. Even the birds played their part, diving into scanners and disorienting the machines until they walked into their own traps. Kale moved among it all like a ghost, striking where needed, never staying long. But the enemy wasn't stupid. They learned fast, adjusted faster. After a day of losses, they sent a commander, a being covered in armor that shimmered like oil, its movements smoother than anything mechanical had the right to be. It stood in the center of the ruined scout zone and spoke not in words, but with a gesture. A simple pointing motion toward the jungle. Challenge accepted. Kale stood across from it hours later, face streaked with dirt and sweat, his eyes calm but burning. Behind him, Duchess growled, ready. The commander tilted its head, curious, then charged. The fight was brutal, beautiful in its savagery. The jungle watched like a crowd gathered for an ancient ritual. The two clashed among the roots, over stone, through waterfalls. Kale didn't try to overpower it. He danced, misdirected, lured it into the trap he'd prepared days earlier. A natural pit lined with hardened sap and bones of fallen beasts. The commander saw it too late. It stumbled, fell, and Kale sealed it with fire made from old alien fuel and jungle oil. As the flames crackled, the jungle exhaled. Kale didn't celebrate. He knew this was just the start. But he looked around at the trees, at the animals watching, at the stars above, and felt one thing very clearly. Earth was not a planet to conquer. It was a planet with guardians. And one of them never wore shoes.